Many people, after telling them about Walk USA, have asked me, how in the world do I plan for such a large adventure? Planning for a trip of this size is important. Although it may be possible to carry on an adventure like this with little planning, the more that can be figured out before you start the trail will definitely bring reassurance and help mitigate risk. As with any sort of planning, I start off the task seeking advice from people who are expert at long-distance backpacking. Picking up tips from Andrew Circa and Chris Townsend, both long-distance backpackers who have traveled all over the world and who have both completed treks in the Alaska and Yukon area. Using their advice, along with advice from forums, blogs, and hikers I have personally spoken with, have led me to develop my current planning model. So let's get into it. Today I'll be showing you the itinerary I have planned for getting across the state of Maryland. I started off my planning by purchasing a guidebook created by the American Discovery Trail Society. This guidebook can be purchased from their online store for $15 for each regional book. There are 4 regional books in all. As far as my research goes, this is the only comprehensive guidebook for the ADT. Since the trail has only been active for a little more than a decade, there's very little information for hikers that shares critical planning information about the trail. This is the guidebook. In its raw format, it provides step-by-step directions and advice for the trail. This includes longitude and latitude information, as well as elevation, distance, and service information. Using the guidebook, as well as services like Google Earth, I can plan out how I'm going to get across the state of Maryland. I start off by reading each line of the directions and highlight and identify the critical information that it gives me. For an example, all dark gray areas are possible refuges. In this example, I highlighted a church because if I were to be in a pinch, this may be an establishment where I could seek refuge for the night. Green areas signify services that I can take advantage of. This includes shopping centers, food, post offices, and other similar services. Orange areas are places where the directions describe a location where all services are available. These areas are great rest spots and also bring peace of mind knowing that I can attend in this area to my personal needs. Blue areas are places where the directions say that there is water. In Maryland, this information may not be as important as, in comparison, say, a dry state like Nevada. In Maryland, I'm lucky to have so many resources available in addition to lakes and rivers that can easily provide me with water in a pinch. Yellow areas are items of interest or importance. For example, on this page you'll see I have highlighted an elementary school. I have this highlighted because an elementary school could be a great speaking opportunity to give back to the community and to share my story. It's a pleasant thought to think I could possibly encourage our next generation's young minds to start thinking about our environment, nature, and hiking. I hope to talk to communities across the state, and especially across the country, especially young people, about hiking recreationally and to discuss the proper safety for when you're out on the trails. So when dissecting the guidebook, the first step I took was highlighting. Highlighting is important because it allows me to see relevant information at a glance. This obviously saves me a headache and time when reviewing the notes on the trail, and to help me alert me quickly of what's coming ahead. My next step is to beef up the information that is provided to me by the guidebook. I do this by adding comments to the relevant areas of the itinerary. For example, next to an elementary school, I have added a note that provides me with useful information, like a phone number and a website. These notes are throughout the document, and are available to be printed with a hard copy of the guidebook, which is important. Once when I have added all this information, I can then go into breaking the states down by days. Knowing that I walk about 3 miles an hour, minus about 30 minutes to an hour for every 1,000 miles of ascent, I can use this information to create a mile schedule that flows about 20 miles per day. However, there are days that have been planned to exceed about 25 miles in a single day. Each day that is traveled in the state is marked by a box on the far left corner of the document. Also included is the distance that is required to get to that spot from the last stopping point. For an example, this would be my 6th day in Maryland and would have traveled about 20 miles to get to that point. I've also included information on whether or not I need to pack for more than one day of traveling. In addition to each stopping area marked, I've included a satellite image of the area, which may be useful for quickly getting an idea of where I'll be stopping. I find it necessary to point out that I will not be following this walking schedule intensely. Rather, it provides me with an idea of how I can break up my days, find safe spots to rest, and it delivers information about times in which I will have to pack more supplies for longer treks. It's also important to point out that the waypoints listed in the guidebook correspond to a point that has already been plotted on a map. Here, in Google Earth, you can see each point that is discussed in the guidebook. These waypoints are saved as .gpx files that can be transferred to other mapping software, for an example, a software that allows you to view topographical maps. I wish I could say this is all the planning that I would need to do in order to get ready for my trip, but saying that would be a huge understatement. Other important aspects of planning include, and are not limited to, equipment, environmental and route conditions, body training, advanced hiking knowledge, health, and wilderness survival. I hope to cover how I approach these areas in upcoming videos. However, for now, I'll be working on the long task of completing this planning process for all the states that I'll be traveling in. Keep in mind that how you plan for your trip is your personal preference. Many people will suggest different ideas on how to approach it. The main thing to consider is whether or not the plan works for you. With that, I would like to thank you for taking interest in this video. I am Edward Mielda from Walk USA, signing off.